what does right and wrong mean to you?
Well, I agree with you. The right, you help you help protect that. But the people that are outside the gray and in the wrong, instead of the way I look at it, instead of pushing all of them aside, there's probably quite a few that want help.
Yeah.
So you got to help some of the wrong.
Right.
In the gray area, so when I was in the FTO program the first time, before I quit and came back, I had a supervisor, FTO supervisor, tell me, as long as you do right, you'll never be wrong. And I was like, that's some deep stuff right there. Yeah. Because we were going over policy, and he was like, policy's there, but if you do right, like if you're doing it sincerely to do the right thing morally, then you can't be wrong. Right. And that ever since that conversation, I've always been like, because there's times where should probably someone go to jail? Yeah, they probably should. And by policy, maybe they probably should. Yeah. But I call the supervisor and I'm like, listen, this ain't what it is. This ain't gonna fix nothing. Right. And when you work for a good supervisor who will listen to their officer and say, I trust you. Right. You get to do a lot more. Right. You get to have a lot more leeway. Right. But I think the gray area, I don't like to live in the gray area.
Yeah. The gray area is dangerous.
That's where you get in trouble. Yeah. I like to, now the gray area when I like discretion. I like when I have discretion, when I can make a decision. Yeah. Because more times than not, I'm going to make a decision that someone will like. Yeah. Because I don't like, especially working in a college town, you don't want to mess someone's life up
so when they're so young.
Well, we were all dumb and young at one point.
I made plenty of dumb mistakes. I made plenty of dumb decisions.
I remember we went to what came out as a stabbing one time, and we went, and it was a house that doesn't like us. And guys were talking to the suspect, and I don't know why he wasn't in handcuffs, but I put him in handcuffs, and I walk him away from everybody. Yeah. And I tell him, these come off just as easy as they go on. Yeah. I read him Miranda, and we had a conversation. He turned around. I took those cuffs off because we completed the investigation, and there was no probable cause, and the other guy was full of it. Right. And he looked at me, and he goes, wow. I've had cops tell me that before, but they never came off. And I was like, well, that's because I don't know. Right. But I don't believe, like my dad said years ago, not everybody's a criminal. Yeah. And I told that dude, I said, you're only in handcuffs because you look fast and I'm not chasing you. Right. That's why right now. I'd love to have a conversation, but I'm not chasing you. Right. Because then you will go to jail. Right.
Yeah, because if I catch you, you're going to jail tonight.
So I think a lot of the problem is people with today's generation, people becoming cops. They text and all that. They don't know how to talk to people. Yeah. They don't have life experience. Yeah. They haven't dealt with different cultures. They live in their bubble. Yeah. And that's a big problem.
It's a big problem in terms of police officers. We're having that
That's
issue.
what I'm talking about.
That's what you're talking about? Yeah. Hiring police officers, this younger generation. And we're not talking bad about them. No. It's a real thing where we have young people coming into any job for that matter, where they don't know how to talk to people because they just haven't had that experience. And then on top of that, they haven't had any life experience.
Well, they haven't been punched in the mouth.
They haven't been punched in the mouth, never been in a fight. Yeah. None of that. And then we expect them to go out there. Let's be real. You take a 21-year-old white officer and put him in the hood, and he ain't never experienced life before. Never been in a fight. Never went to school with black kids. None of that. Yeah. But we put him in the hood. And that's a real thing. Question. Can that kid learn to work, live, adapt to the hood?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Elementary school, white kids. Middle school, white kids. High school, white kids.
Well, if they're 21, their brain's not even fully formed yet.
That's true.
So you put him with the right, if you have the right training officers who teach him and don't expect him to be, you can't have a high standard as far as like
this. Yeah, that's a good point.
Like educate, like cop-wise, educationally as a cop, you can't have that high of a standard for a kid. Once you learn that the background is there,
right,
which isn't bad. That's just how that those were the cards you were dealt, just like everybody else in life.
Right, because you can't cancel a person out because they haven't lived this type of lifestyle.
So teach them.
Right.
That's all. That's what.
What does teaching them look like? Other than, is there something other than street, other than just the FTO program? Is there something outside of the street level training that needs to happen?
No. It needs to be on the job.
Yep.
And it needs to be exposure. Definitely
on the job.
It has to be exposure.
Yeah.
Because you can't. Here's the thing. I'm not willing to come and just hang out somewhere on my off time just to learn something, right? Because I have a family. I have stuff to do.
It's all about time.
But I go sit down in the hood and just sit there and talk to people.
Right.
And they may not like me there, or they may talk to me, or they may say hey, or that, you know.
Yeah.
But I learned how they live. I learned a lot of stuff, and I don't judge people. Like I just don't, like, based on that's how you live. That's you.
What if I said to you, judging somebody, right?
Right.
Versus treating them based on your judgment. Do you think everybody judges?
Oh yeah.
All right. So
I guess that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, and the Bible says, I think the Bible says something about don't judge people. But in reality, we all judge, right?
We all have our bias.
We have our biases. But we are supposed to be mature enough to the point where just because we see somebody and think this initially, we should still give them the time of day to prove themselves, to let us know who they really are.
Yeah. If you can't go into it that, like, you have to prove something to me. Yeah. You just have to go into it. All right, here's my judgment.
Right.
Like this is what I see.
Right.
Maybe not even judge. This is what I see.
Yeah.
But then you talk to them, you're like, oh, they played junior college football too.
You're right. Exactly.
They just they got hooked on something, or something happened, or something financially happened, and you learn. You just have to talk. Like I keep going back. You just have to converse.
Because that's what it is. That's the root of it.
You know, you can't sit in your car with you. And trust me, I have days where I don't want to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. Police officers,
don't we all?
You want to come to work, roll the window up, and then just do your thing.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about patrol, because you can do that.
Right.
And that's where you interact with people. Right. That's why I don't. There's nothing else I want to do.
And one of my favorite parts of the job is the interaction with the public. Mm-hmm. Like, I come to work just so I can see something different every day. That interaction with the public. I mean, I sit at one of the local convenience stores in Frenchtown, Time Saver. That's one of my favorite spots to sit. You know why? Because I can get out and I can sit at the front of the store, talk to the people that people don't expect police officers to talk to.
And we don't get TPW calls.
You know what I'm saying? Right. I definitely do my community policing there. It works out. It's a benefit. But it's just that it's those simple interactions, that being a presence in the communities that you actually work in, and not just being a presence, just sitting in your car, turning your blue lights on and responding to the calls that you get sent to. It's driving through those communities with your windows down, waving at people, getting out with people, asking them how their day was, how your kids doing, if you have the opportunity, if you know them like that. You might not know everybody like that, but when you do take the opportunity to get out your car and communicate with people, it goes a long way.
Oh, yeah. I had a guy I arrested for trespass at Time Saver. Yeah. And he took the ride because he talked himself into the ride. Mm-hmm. And like last week or 2 weeks ago, I seen him and he's like, I had a drink in this amount of time. I said, and you could tell he hadn't been drinking. Yeah. He goes, I deserve to go to jail. Right. I was a jackass that day. Right. Yeah. But see, when you don't, like, here's the thing: you're taking them to jail. There ain't no need to talk trash to them or say nothing to them. They're going to jail. Right. And trust me, there's probably some people who get it, and they probably get on my nerves. I'm human. I had a bad day or something, and I say something back to them. Yeah. But for the most part, it's like I just let people talk in the back of the car, because when I finish that paperwork, I'm gonna go get me a Polar Pop, and I'm gonna go do my thing. Right. And that's just how I look at it. And it's just respect. I mean, we're all human, you know, and I got a heated debate about how officers get to take their uniform off and like the black community don't get to take their skin off. And I said, I disagree with that.
Yeah.
And they say, why? And I say, well, first of all, you know my face. So I'm always a police officer to you, no matter what.
Whether you see me in uniform or not.
Right. My police car is at my house. You see it.
Right.
I had people during all the riots and stuff last year. There was a telephone pole on my road. They spray painted a cab and all that stuff on the telephone pole. I'm the only police officer that lives on my road. Right. And it's a one-way in, one-way out road. There's a telephone pole right in front of my house that they could have done it to.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. It's like, don't bring it to my doorstep.
Right.
You know, my family has nothing to do with what I do.
Right.
I don't go out looking for trouble. Trust me, if I could go to work and just go make snow cones with kids and go play ball with kids or something, like, I do it.
You sign up for it, right?
Right. It's but I signed up. I want the bad people. I want the people that hurt people.
Right.
That's who I want to find.
Yeah.
And if nobody hurts anybody, that's fine.
But just leave people alone.
Yeah.
No. You know how they say, why the police always bothering people?
Because you get my attention for one reason or another.
Right. And it's usually because you did something wrong. It's usually because
you just did something stupid.
Yeah. But
like
the police,
when you yell F the police out your window.
Why you want my attention?
Okay. Or when this happened the other night.
Yeah.
I detained a guy who didn't have an ID on him, and he wouldn't tell me. He kept giving me fake socials and all this other stuff. And some white girl, yelled, "Let him go!" And then she rear ends the car in front of her.
Really?
Yeah. Karma.
Yeah.
Because guess what? He got in the ambulance and went to the hospital because he was having some issues.
Did you work the traffic crash too, or somebody else worked the traffic crash?
No, they actually were friends.
Oh, really?
Fun. So they worked it between themselves.
Oh, man. Golly. She got off easy.
But it's like, it's like, I don't, the only time I go looking for people is when I run traffic.
Yeah.
And that's because I look for people driving under the influence because you could potentially
kill somebody,
hurt somebody.
Right.
That's hurting. That's what I'm there for.
Right.
For people that hurt people.
Law and order, man. People have to understand that there has to be law and order. There has to be some type of, boundaries that people can't cross.
Right.
And we are the people to enforce those boundaries. And you have to respect that. I'm not saying that you should respect it because I, Justin Hill, Officer Hill, am the law. I'm saying that because that is where the peace, is.
Right.
It's anything beyond that boundary, you don't want to be there because beyond that boundary is a lot of turmoil. It's a lot of chaos. And anybody who's willing to live in chaos, you got to question their thinking. I want to live on this side of chaos, not on that side. So I have to learn how to respect the law. And the law isn't the police. The law is the law.
Right.
The police are just the enforcers of that law. One
thing I like to tell people is when everybody was like, "Oh, see all the officers that are leaving, they're the ones that are the bad ones." No, those are the good ones.
Those are the good ones.
Because guess what? Well, for the longest time where we worked, required a degree to work.
Yep.
So you got people who choose to do this, who have other options.
Right.
When you start treating them the way that the way it was portrayed, the country, I won't even say the country, it was portrayed how we were being treated because it wasn't everywhere.
Yeah.
They're going to find something else to do.
Yeah.
Those are the good ones, doing it for the right reasons.
Yep.
And
go ahead, I'm sorry.
And that was I try to tell people that, like, when you have other options, you're not going to come to work and put a gun on your hip every day and potentially die.
Right.
When you don't feel appreciated.
Right. That's tough. Even as a black police officer, that's tough. I feel like I'm going to do this job for 25, 30 years. I feel like I'm in it for the long haul. I really do feel like that. I don't know what will change 5, 10 years from now. If I find some outside source that gives me a great income, my mindset could easily change. Do you think the policing system its foundational principles are rooted in evil?
Well, I have to be completely honest with you. I just found out last year how policing started.
I'm still learning. Enlighten me.
How they were going to get the slaves and return them to the owners. That's how
policing started?
That's how I was told it started.
Does that mean that is what policing is today?
No. It evolves like everything else.
Are there still some of those principles deeply? Are there some of those principles inside of policing? Is it possible that there's some still in there?
I mean, it's always possible.
It's always possible, right?
I don't know.
It's one of those things that just make you think.
Where you and I work,
yeah,
we don't. I don't see the big issues, because for one,
of course you would say that though.
No,
that's what they think.
Yeah, but our agency, in my opinion, represents our community well.
Yeah,
as far as where people are leaders and all that stuff. Right. But I've never felt like like the poor cops in Portland or like Miami even. Yeah. We didn't deal with, we had them march. Right. Kneel. Right. Do you. Right. I don't care. Right. I'll make sure you can do it. Right. But when you start impeding on other people's liberties, that's when it becomes an issue. Right. Like I always tell, like the kneeling thing, being a vet, kneel. Yeah. That's what I fought for. Yeah. Do you? But
freedom, right?
Understand you work for a private company who can mandate things as a private company.
And you just need to be
mindful when you make millions of dollars and you cost somebody millions of dollars, they're not going to like it.
Right. There's consequences to every action.
And that's why I don't know. Like the big thing the last couple of years has been the parking lot parties.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the one that happened at the Rattler last summer.
Mm-hmm. Where the guy was killed.
Killed in the front of the store.
Yeah.
But they still go to these big parties. Right. These kids go to these big parties. And it's like, why?
Why put your life in danger like that?
Like someone's going to have a gun in that group. I guarantee
Multiple people are going to have guns in that group.
But if you noticed, the first officers on scene there helping do life-saving measures and went through that crowd. Like they didn't think about.
They just did it.
Yes.
They just did it.
And it was awesome to see all of us come together, make that scene safe.
Right.
And nobody else got hurt.
Right.
But and that's the takeaway I take from it. Like
and we talking, we're not talking about just a crowd. We're talking about hundreds of
people.
That
was the most chaotic scene I've ever been on.
And we're talking about police officers. Whether you first on scene, second on scene, you're going through that crowd.
There was one officer on scene by himself.
In the middle of all of that chaos.
Trying to render aid to that person that was shot.
Right.
He didn't think about anything else but trying to save that person.
Trying to save that dude's life.
And I take away from something like that, like, look at how fast we all came together, made that scene safe.
Yeah.
And started investigating, trying to figure out who did it.
Right.
We didn't even think about it. I've asked people, I've tried to recruit people, like, you have too many shootings. They all but tell me they're scared.
Yeah.
But it can happen anywhere.
Is policing going to get harder over the years? If so, why? If not, why?
I don't know. I think the only way it'll get hard is, so when you start talking about all these people want us to take stuff off our belt, they don't want us to use this, they want us to use that. Well, the more stuff you take away from us, between us talking to somebody and us pulling our gun out, the faster we get to the gun. And that's not something we want to do. I want options. Right. I'd rather talk to somebody, but I want options.
Right. I've never heard anybody say that, but that's a good point.
So, I mean, it's technology is there for us to do our job more efficiently.
Yeah.
It's just, it's up to the legislator.
Right.
That old term, I don't make the law, I enforce it.
Right.
You just got to choose how hard you enforce certain ones over others.
Right.
Because there's some laws that if you have discretion, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is it worth that bad interaction? Or if not enforcing it, is it going to make it a better interaction?
Right.
Because if someone sees that you have the option to take them to jail and you don't because you use discretion.
Right.
I mean, the canine thing is touchy just because of how dogs were used back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, and that could be another stigma. Right. I've seen them do more good finding kids, finding bombs, finding illicit drugs.
Right. I mean, to think that canines are being used the way they used to be used is just ridiculous. If that's what you think, right? We, like you said, it's a stigma, and I understand the stigma, But just because there's a stigma doesn't mean that you get to disregard how canines are truly used today.
Right.
We don't just sick dogs on people.
No.
We don't do that. We use dogs when they need to be used. Now, do some police officers make bad decisions? Yes, we've learned that year over year, every year. But we get punished for some of the decisions we make based on a few. Right. We get punished for decisions we make based on past. We're talking about racial lines and stuff being crossed. But you know what? I mean,
that's why it's so different down here for me, because I didn't grow up around that. I mean, obviously it's everywhere, but to me it wasn't like, I don't know, like my mom talking about how, like, when we were in Texas, my dad was stationed in Texas, and they used to think she was my nanny because she was, dark and dark hair, and I was blonde, and then hanging out with, black families and stuff, and it's just like, that's just how I was raised. Right. Like, it wasn't like you're black, so this is different. It's just, you're my friend.
You understood race, but you didn't let race block you block your mindset on how to treat people.
And that's what's frustrating, because I know, obviously, there's a lot of people I interact with on the street. We don't know each other. Yeah. And that's what gets frustrating. That's something I have to cope with. It's like, but you don't know me. You don't know how I think. Right. Well, I don't know how he thinks either. Right. Because he could have had a bad interaction with a cop 2 weeks ago. Yep. And now all cops are bad to them.
Yep. I went to a call like that. Girl was causing a scene at the leasing office in an apartment complex. Yeah. And I find her in the apartment complex walking to the mailbox, and the first thing she does, she stepped back and tells me to keep away from her. All based off of what she's seeing in the news and the media. Mm-hmm. I don't know, you might try to hurt me. I'm not going to try to hurt you. Stay away from me. Blase, 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 all that kind of crazy stuff. But after about 8 to 10 minutes, just conversation, she realized that I'm not what she thought I was. Right. Because she didn't choose to take the time to get to know me. I forced her to take the time to get to know me because I had to investigate, right? But through that interaction, her entire mindset was changed simply because she had a conversation.
But I also think officers have to think about that.
Yeah, you have to be aware. And it sucks that we have to think about it, but that's the day and age.
Well, no, I'm saying, like, when I interact with whoever on the street, I have to be mindful that the next interaction he has with an officer may not be me.
Right. Yeah.
So officers have to be mindful that you're setting up how you treat that person today could determine how that person responds to the next officer. Right. Could, between fighting and not fighting.
And that's me looking out for you.
Right.
At the end of the day,
We had a guy, we got called somewhere. Dude was laying in the street. Mm-hmm. We roll up in the area. Yeah. He takes off running. Yeah. An officer takes after him. What are you chasing him for? But there's some of these guys that they chase the rabbit.
I'm not running after somebody who just run.
You're going to be hard pressed to catch me running after anybody.
Right. I mean, I've tweaked my hamstring at least 3 times in my 7 years. I ain't young like I used to be.
No, it hurts everybody.
It hurt, man.
I stay in my car as long as possible.
Right. Shoot, I'm not running after nobody if I don't have to.
Hey,
if I got to.
They keep getting younger. We just keep getting older.
Right. I'm 35. I'm talking about being old, but that's real though.
Oh, I'm on the backside of 36.
Listen, I do not play in the NFL.
No.
The MLB or the NBA.
You might be retired by now.
Right.
You're old in that aspect.
I'm telling you, man. Exactly.
No, I don't think I could be a cop out west right now.
Really?
No.
It's worse out west?
I just think it's not.
I get what you're saying because of the L word.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a different world, man.
It's just different.
That's a different world. If you take 2 guys like me, and you've been over here long enough, if you take 2 guys like me and take us over there and become cops, we wouldn't last long.
I could figure it out.
Yeah, we probably would. We would adapt.
But it's just one of those things. It's like
the patience.
Well, like there's like real gangs out there. Yeah. I'm not saying there's not real gangs here, but there's like the Crips and the Bloods, and like Mexican Mafia, like all that stuff's legit out there.
Right.
And there's pockets here and there, but a lot of stuff here, it's just a lot of neighborhood stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of you know, another time my wife kind of stopped riding along with me. Another time my wife rode with me. I had a bailout on a traffic stop.
Yeah.
Chasing a dude around the projects.
Yeah.
And we get in the car. I finally caught him. I only caught him because somebody said he was in their apartment. But he had gotten away. I ended up arresting him. And we have a conversation on the way to the jail. We're just talking. Just BSing. Yeah. My wife goes, "You know him?" Nope. How you talk to him like you know him?
That's an art.
I said, "You just talk to people."
Tell you, man, it's an art.
Yeah. And then we get to the jail, and we knew one of the jailers that worked there at the jail. Yeah. And I go tell the dude his fine, because I was going to charge him a burglary. Yeah. And we were like, "No, we'll just do trespass, occupied dwelling." Yeah. So I go tell him, "Hey, man, you're getting off with 2 misdemeanors, but you have to be here because you ran." Right. And he fist bumps me, and we walk out. My wife goes, "Man, did he just fist bump you? And you just took him to jail?"
Man, I love that.
But he's what we call an OG. Yeah. Because it's one of those, I get away from the cops, I get away this time. Right. He catches me, There was no fight. I didn't throw a knee. I didn't do none of that. Yeah. He didn't resist. He didn't try to fight me anymore. Right. He knew the gig was up.